welcome back. So let's learn about strings. So remember that when we first printed our first program, so we had maybe like when in C programming, we actually included these inside double quotes. So we printed out like Owen in C programming with two actually opening and closing double quotes. And then we printed this out to our compiler. So when you run that, then we get ON in C programming. So let's see, instead of using this, then we talked of also like using variables. So this is called direct printing to your compiler. So I think, yeah, we're done with that. So the next thing here is we printed using variables. So what we did here, we actually declared and assigned. So we said maybe like string, maybe like school, then we assigned it in a value. So maybe like we have a person maybe like in School of Engineering or a College of Engineering. Then we printed this out using the variable one. So I hope you remember the scenario of the supermarket and actually the luggage. So we can now like print school. So if you now run this, then we expect the same thing. So instead of like direct printing, so we used the variable. So we have School of Engineering. So that's actually the two things we covered about strings. Then we talked about just briefly about methods. So we add this scenario here. So let's say we're just going to maintain this variable over here. So we talked about this being a function. So the opening and closing, then the data type, and then the main, and then this. So this is actually a method. So remember, a method is actually comes in between the opening and closing bracket. So I can say now my method here, then that one, then I add it here. So this is called like calling a method. So it's actually like you've already built it, then you now like reference to the method. So this is actually the architecture of actually a method. So this is how a method looks like. So you actually use, so remember methods are actually like they actually like come with like, sorry, yeah, not here, methods come with like predefined meaning. So they have not a predefined meaning but predefined task. So they already have inbuilt code. So you can now say maybe like get maybe a length of a string or this. So within that method it has a lot of housed code. So but what you only need to know is how are you calling that method. So to call a method means like you now execute it. So you don't necessarily have to understand the logic behind the method. So what you have to do is actually like call the method, and the method will perform the task that was designed. So maybe like we can perform methods on strings. So maybe like get the length of all this. So let me like just minimize this into this small string. So when you now run this, we now have engineering. So let's say we now want to find the number of characters in this string. So instead of us like writing maybe like different, maybe like multi-line, like 6 line of code or many other things, so we have a method with actually like already it has been coded and it has actually been housed into one method. So we can now say School of Engineering. So to use a method, you have to use this, the dot method. So and once you use the dot method, you can see now we have different functions, different methods over here. So you can see that we have this. So once you have the dot, then it can like actually like throw you most of the suggestions. So we can say maybe like the length. So this is actually like the way you print method. So we can now say, you can now run this. So we expect that we'll get to as no member of, sorry, length. So the compile and run. Sorry, my English is not working. So we now have like 11 characters. So if you now count, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So this is how you access different methods. So we can now maybe like get to maybe like find out, instead of directly using this, so we can say maybe int, maybe total words, then say school dot the length. So I can just press enter, and then it like gets me the total length. So instead of like directly printing this, so I'm just going to print here the total word. So if I now run this, so the scenario remains the same. So we have 11. So what I just did is, instead of like writing this in a different line of code, maybe like saying, hey, you are telling your compiler, I want to store this number of words in, of course you have to declare it's an integer because you're counting in all numbers. So you have to use this method school.length. So that's why we now find that we have this method. So this is a method, and the way to call a method is you attach in the data type that you want or what you want to execute with the dot, so that we can now like access in the method inside that. So for example, in our string, so we're using a string and we assigned that string into engineering, and we are now, what we are doing here is we are saying school.length. So this now stores in an integer format the total word. So well, when now we print this variable, then we now have the output. So that's actually like how the length find so is actually like gets executed. So the next thing you want to do is a substring. So a substring means that we have the parent string, and then we want to check with a substring or recreate a different variable. So what we can now do, it takes in actually, so the substring takes in a starting index and actually like the end index. So we're going to learn next about indexing. So if you now say we want to create a new school, so you can now say like, so for us to access this, so we're going to say school dot substring. So what substring, so we're going to just to end this one. So what this does is we have to make sure that this substring, the characters must be in the parent. So I'm just going to call this one the parent, actually the parent string. And then we are going to call this one maybe the child string, because the characters that will appear here must be in the parent string. So let's maybe say we want to print just int e and g. So we're going to start, and remember in indexing, so let me just say, so indexing starts from 0, then 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we now have 10. So we and when it came to maybe like counting, then we add 11 values. So we are starting with actually a 0 here. So because indexing always starts with a 0, it doesn't start like normal numbers like 1, 2, 3. So it starts with 0, 1, 2. So let's say we want to print this value here from this point to maybe like this point here. So let me just comment this one out so that it doesn't look awkward. Okay, back again. So yes, up to that point. So let's say we don't want this one. So we only want to print from string 0 from only this one. So we have 0, 1, 2. So what we're going to tell actually our substring is we want to print from index 0 to index 2. And then once we're now done, let's assign this one to now our new name. So let's say let's call it new school. New school. And remember, this is again a string. So this is actually what the code does. So what we're doing here is we are getting this substring. So we have to now assign this one. So we are actually assigning a method here. So what we are actually saying is we want to print these three values. So we are calling the school.substring, and then we are actually like reassigning all this into a variable called new school. And remember, the data type of the variable is a string. So if you now print our new school, so let's see what will actually be printed. Boom, we now have E and G. So our index is 0, 1, 2. So we now passed in the index. So indexing, so we're going to now print from index 3, sorry. So let's run this. So we have actually like the eng. So we are actually like including, so I'm just going to remove that one. So then we're going to print again from that to index 3. Then we now have our engineering, so we are printing from the first character here. So then the next thing we want to do, so I want you to note this is actually like indexing. So, and this is substring. So if you are not to use the square bracket, so I want you to again note this. So let's say C out. So let's just give you let me just give you a quick one. So let's use the main C out. Then let's just print school. Then school dot substring. So substring of 0 to 2. I want you to know the indexing. So we have this 0 to 3. So we are supposed to print up to this engineering in G up to I. So if you now run this, so let's say let me just end this one so that the compiler doesn't complain. So let me print this one in a new line. So if you now run this, we see we have en then eng. So what's the difference? And yet our indexing should be up to this point. So that's what we call indexing. But when it comes to now like substring, we have to actually like start from this. So indexing, the one that starts with the square bracket, so it will now take in the value of up to n minus 1. So for this one, we have to include from index 0 to 1. So we'll get to know the difference of indexing with these substrings. So the next thing we are going to do is, so I'm just going to remove this our new school here, and then going to remove this one again. So let's see now something cool about, so we are done with methods. Something cool about indexing. So we are going to still remain to the engineering one here. So let's say we want to access a value. So maybe like the first character. So I'm going to say maybe like engineering. So the school. And then if you want to access a value in actually like indexing, you use the opening and closing square bracket. So let's say you want to access the first index. So we have to use actually this value here, string then index 0. So I can now like take this and just cut it. That's Control X. So and then I'm going to like do this, paste it here. So let me run all this. So we expect that we can now like access our first index, that's E and G. So that's how you actually like get to maybe like access elements using indexing. Indexing, always remember that it starts from 0 up to n minus 1. So that's why we have 11 characters and our index goes from 0 to 10. So the next thing we can do is we can maybe update. So instead of like School of Engineering, we can now say the school of engineering. So this is just the first element. So we can update this. Instead of engineering, then we can maybe like print up something. We can just print an A here. So we to do that, we're going to say you put that there. So in the first thing we want to do is we want to actually like want to update a character. So to remember to update a character, you actually use a single code. So you can say maybe like A. Then if you now print school, you will now see a different format. So if you now run that, we have A then engineering. So that's how you update values with indexing. So that's all you had to do about strings and then using methods and also indexing. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to look a little bit more into numbers in C++ programming.